Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to another live of Operation Separation. I'm your host, Shel Shapiro, founder of Shell Station, where I provide career coaching. And I do that by way of showing people how to show up on LinkedIn and be themselves, no matter what the cost may be to others. As long as you're feeling fulfilled yourself and feeling good about it, I am here to serve you in all the ways. With me today, I have an amazing guest, Steena Marie. She's a life coach. I'm really excited for this conversation today, all about embracing yourself. Steena Marie, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Tell everybody.
I'm so excited to be here. What do I do? One of my most recent conversations is just a little cheeky comment. I told somebody I sell SaaS. And I loved that. I have been in the online business space in a few different capacities in the last 4 to 5 years. I've done some copywriting. I've done some high-level VA support and also coaching. So I've really enjoyed being in both like the back end and the front end, as far as like it's all tied back to communication, right? So everything that I do centers around communication of our ideas, communication in relationships, and that all applies to us, whether we're entrepreneurs or have a career or just have a family.
Yeah, oh my God, there's so many ways that I was overthinking this earlier about how this conversation could go. And when I think about embracing yourself, the first thing that comes to my mind is the opposite of that, bracing yourself. And I see Linda is here joining us today. So this is perfect timing because I saw a post of hers the other day where she shared one of your blog posts, and it was about safety and like this need to people please, and you're doing it to remain safe, to remain in control, to protect yourself. And I thought, oh my God, like how many of us do that? How many of us people please as a way to stay in control and to feel safe? But what happens is you're really just bracing yourself for the next impact. Like you're like mentally like clenching your body, if not also physically. And I know I do that. Like you're putting all this stress and exertion on yourself to perform, to show up in the right way. And there's something to dissecting that a little bit more and forget about people pleasing for others if you can't do it for yourself first, if you can't please yourself, if you can't feel safe in who you are. And so that's where I thought immediately thought like, I want to unpack embracing yourself. Like, let's turn the impact inward and see how that could like really start showing up in our lives. So I guess my first question for you is, how do you navigate this, whether in the past to like get out of something? How did you navigate it, or how are you navigating it now to help yourself or help others?
So good. I love it. We've got people pleasing, bracing yourself, all of those lovely things. And I think to your point about navigating, the question you asked it in 2 parts, and I think it's both. We navigate it and we overcome things. We also are constantly navigating as we go forward. And that is, for me, one of the biggest parts of embracing myself and my whole self is that I can't just expect that I can overcome something one time and then it's done and I've healed and I get to move on. It's always another layer. There's always another level. There's always more. So there's never a time where I feel like we arrive and we say, oh, I have now embraced my whole self, problem solved. I shall never struggle again with this.
Yeah.
There's just an evolution and a growth of noticing how we're holding ourselves in, how we're holding ourselves back, how we're trying to make ourselves smaller or more quiet or more convenient. That's a big one for me, is trying to make myself more convenient to other people and not wanting to be a burden to them. So my early, I would say early people pleasing, unpacking people pleasing was about like, okay, what am I doing actively to try and make other people happy so that I will feel safe? And now it's kind of evolved into looking at it a little bit more deeply, where it's like, where am I making these really subtle changes that are just to like I said, make myself a little more convenient, or try to not like impede on other people. So, it's a lot easier to identify the ways that we're going out of our way to accommodate people and to make them happy and to try and impress people. Or, maybe it's our family or our friends. Usually it's people closest to us, and then the people kind of farthest away from us that we people please. And what I mean by that is, you think about the people that you know and that you have a lot of contact with. How are they feeling? How do they feel about you? How is your relationship? And then we tend to like think about the complete strangers and people that don't know us, and what are they going to think about us, and how are they going to judge us? There's almost a gap in the middle of people that we are kind of acquaintances with or know a little bit, and we like forget about them. It's interesting how our brains seem to work that way. But I've noticed that myself. It's either those people really close to me, or it's like these almost imaginary people that don't really exist, out there, and what's going to happen. And so making myself, like I said, more convenient is it's a very subtle process, and it's a very, they're very like sneaky things that I'll do where I'm like, that's interesting. Why are we doing that? And it's like, oh, well, I didn't want to impede. I didn't want to interrupt someone else because I had a need or a want or something to communicate. And so then that's where the, making yourself small, bracing yourself, as you put it, and keeping myself, out of the way, has come up for me like more recently.
Oh, I can so relate to that. I've often found myself questioning, especially lately, what would be the impact if I just stopped going out of my way to keep my needs to myself. And there's so much there, because why am I going out of my way to keep my needs to myself if I really, really want other people to see that I'm needed? Like, if that's been something that I've struggled with, is communicating when I need something, and I still have a hard time with that, asking for what I need. The fear there, which is definitely something that you've helped me like challenge a little bit, like facing that fear and as Linda knows, doing it anyway, is like, if I communicate that fear and it's denied or not acknowledged, and then I'm like, well, why did I bother putting it out there if it didn't help me the way that I pictured it? So it's that attachment to how I expect it to help me, or how I expect it to transform me or make me better, or even the way that I expect people to show up for me is all wrapped up in that fear and that inability to clearly communicate the need. And so I hold it in because I'm like, I don't want to feel that. I'm just gonna hold that inside, and then it just breeds and breeds and breeds. And I'm like, now I missed my chance. Now I feel like we're on to the next thing. That conversation opportunity has passed, and now I've taken a back seat to my own needs because I didn't take the time to present them or stand up for myself. And that's totally part of Operation Separation, right? Because I want people to stand up for themselves. I want people to say, like, hey, I'm here. I am here. You need to hear me. You don't necessarily need to agree with me, but we're here, and my needs are just as important as yours.
I love that. I had two things come up. One was a little thing, and that I noticed when you invited me to join you here a little while later, you said, where would you like me to put the link? And you were directly asking me to make a decision, to give you an answer. And I found myself like wanting to give you options in return, as if I couldn't just decide where it would be most convenient for me and tell you that. And I noted it when it happened, because it was what we're talking about here, where it's, I have a very clear opportunity, even in that instance, with someone who cares about me, that I have a relationship with, who is saying, hey, where would you like me to put this link? Okay, this is a very small request, right? Like, it's a little issue. Yeah. But the way that I instinctively respond is to give you options so that it is convenient for you, right? And you didn't say, Steena, can you please make this convenient for me? I just make that assumption myself. And so I didn't give you options. I said, I would like it in LinkedIn Messenger, since that's the platform we'll broadcast on. In my mind, that's where I will, easily look for it.
Yeah.
So I just asked you to put it there. And on your end, I'm sure there was nothing registered on your radar in that exchange. But on my end, I noticed that I edited it. I changed the way that I was going to answer, because I know that I appreciate when I ask someone a question about something that they need, or how they feel, or what I can do for them. I would like a clear answer, because I don't ask that unless I want to know. If you had not wanted to give me the option, then you would not have asked me where I would like the link. You would have just put it somewhere, and then that's where it is. So we also get to learn that when somebody is offering that up and opening up a conversation or an opportunity for us to express a need, that it is, even in those times, a time to remind ourselves that it's safe, a time to acknowledge and not hold back, especially when someone's asking us. The other part of something you mentioned about we don't always have to agree, right? So if you bring up a need, or you have an opinion to express, it doesn't mean that in order for it to be worth it, the other person has to agree. Or in order for it to be safe, there can't be any conflict, right? And I had to learn this with communicating with my ex, that like, we just aren't always going to agree. And I found that in our marriage, I wanted to be agreeable, and I wanted to always find that common ground, and I wanted to get to the bottom of things. And I spent a lot of energy trying to come to agreement, or just bracing myself so that the agreement could happen, even though I didn't really feel good about it. And I think we've all done that in a way, right? You have to withhold something if you're going to agree to something that feels like a lie, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
You're kind of lying in that agreement. And so now that I'm not in that relationship as intensely, I still have connection with him because of my children. I have taught myself that having an opinion or sharing my thoughts, even if it's going to be disagreed with, is safe and okay. And it's totally fine that he doesn't agree with me. I don't take it personally. I don't judge what he feels. I even think that it should be something we can just expect, that when we express ourselves, the other person is not going to be 100% on board 100% of the time. And so now in the relationship that I'm in now, we just had a conversation this past weekend about something. And I said, and he wasn't sure if I was supportive of this thing that he wanted to take on. And I said, I'm neutral on it. I can't actively support you, but I also am not going to actively not support you or try to sabotage it or, bring any negative energy to it. It's your decision. It's your thing to pursue. And I am not equipped to help you. And I feel like that's such an honoring way to be in relationship with someone, because if he came to me and specifically asked me, could you do this? It would help me with this thing, this pursuit of his. Then I can make a decision about that thing. Can I handle supporting him in this way? Yes or no? But I'm taking it off my plate as like a thing that I have to keep track of, check in on, just be concerned about and like have on my mind. And so I'm being really honest with him that, I don't agree or disagree necessarily. I'm neutral on it, and I'm here for you and I support you. I don't have a lot to contribute to that particular pursuit. And I felt like that's a really healthy way to have a disagreement in a relationship that's ongoing, that you want to flourish, is to be honest and clear about those times when there is something that you're just not really on the same page with it, or things are a little unclear for you. And it keeps me out of the people-pleasing tendency of, oh my gosh, this is something my partner wants, and so I need to participate because it's something that will make him happy. Keeps that individual identity also alive in relationships, because we get to be our own person. We get to be separate from other people, even if it's an intimate relationship or a family relationship. You can still have those disagreements and you can still have healthy communication and connection.
Yeah, I love what you said about taking it off your plate or being clear. That's like you're still there for them if they need you, if they ask for something specific, but you don't always have to insert yourself into the thing that somebody else is doing. And it's a way to embrace yourself and not have it be like a lie or like something that you've obligated yourself to, even without the other person asking. I definitely know that sometimes I do like go along with something because it's what somebody else wants, and it's because I'm in the moment. I'm so excited and I want to share that with them, and then I just insert myself, and then it's hard to retract that. So owning that immediate no, or even my immediate maybe. No, I need more information before I can decide on this. Instead of just definitively saying yes, okay, and then I'm in my mind like, all right, what do they need me to do? They've never actually asked me to do anything, but they've told me about it. And now I'm planning for all these different things to like help them out. I don't even know if they need help or support in this way. I'm going to do it. And so what you were sharing earlier, segueing back to what you were sharing a few moments ago about how I asked you where you would prefer me to drop the link. In the past, how that's presented itself for me in a people-pleasing way is, well, I'm at work knowing that a deadline for something is coming up, and I know that this person has a tendency to not check the email, but the protocol says to like drop it in the email, but they're not. I know that they're going to be lazy and not check it, so I'm going to do a printout. I'm going to do an email. I'm going to like pop it up on the server. I'm going to like put it in so many different places to mitigate where you could possibly see it, because I want to protect myself from you saying, well, why didn't you show it to me on time? So when you're saying like that you had an extra moment of like, well, my tendency is to like give you options to make it more convenient for you, and then no, I had to take the second to like think about what would be most convenient for me. And you're right, I didn't like it doesn't always have to be the most convenient for me. We're connected on multiple platforms. Any of them is convenient.
Right.
I wanted to just like bomb you a little bit and like just make sure everything was in order in all ways, shapes, and forms, I would have put that link in every single platform and not even get like, all right, if you're going to see it in LinkedIn, great. If you're going to see it in Instagram, great. If you're going to see it on Facebook, any other platform, I would have just like love bombed you a little bit with like the link. That's the wrong word, but that's what popped
link,
but
link
like
bombed.
I would just keep like dropping it just to make sure that you didn't miss it. Like I wouldn't have even like asked. I'd be like, did you see it? Did you see it? Like
I love that what you did, the action that you took in asking, like one simple question kept your conscience clear because you were like, I'm going to get a clear answer. That's where the link's going to go. And it actually did make it more convenient for you because then your mind is at peace that we're both on the same page. We both know where the link is going to be. And you don't feel any inclination to then go put it 5 other places. Yeah. Right. And it's like, it's a beautiful exchange that it was you honoring your boundaries and your time and your energy. And then me being really direct with you to where we both came out of that exchange feeling really good.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gathering anyway.
People pleasers.
And I love how one moment in time like that, we can extrapolate all of our thoughts and our behaviors and the things that go into it. Because a lot of times when we think about people pleasing and even just working on ourselves in general, we can overlook those little things, you know, and they add up. They really add up. And so it's not just the big, huge things to look at, but it's also those little communications that can sap so much of our energy. And when we can shift those, we can actually feel so good in those interactions and feel really proud of ourselves, frankly, to be like, yes, I'm doing it. I'm being decisive. I'm being clear. I'm expressing my needs. I'm asking the questions I need to ask. And to me, that's what like courage feels like. That's bravery. That's feeling confident. And I would much rather feel that way than feel scattered or overwhelmed or like I have to overthink what I'm doing because what if I say this and they think this or they feel this way?
Yeah.
It really simplifies that.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing when we start and then continue on our healing journeys. Like you had that moment where you were like, all right, let's unpack what I would normally do here. And I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to tell you where to drop that link. Mm-hmm. And I had that, well, in the past, I would have dropped it in multiple platforms. I would have like prevented you from missing it or tried to mitigate like any possible way that you could have missed the link. And so I'm just going to like drop it everywhere. But I had that momentary thought to realize, let's not do it the same old way. Let's not keep like doing something that didn't sit well with us or that made us more anxious, that made us more like stressed or overwhelmed and put more pressure on ourselves. And that's part of the healing. That's Absolutely. Part of the journey. That's part of the operation separation. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I've learned that, and I say this from a place of dealing with pretty consistent anxiety for years, and postpartum depression and OCD. Like I have personally experienced those things. So I know that you can't just tell anxiety to go away. It doesn't work that way. However, it has really helped me to remember how truly unproductive and useless anxiety can be. And to just be really honest with myself that anxiety produces no real results. Like it does not contribute to progress. It does not get me any closer to where I really want to be. And so even when I'm feeling anxious, I can remember that. And I can try to choose an action that will give me at least one step of progress, in some direction. And it doesn't necessarily get rid of the feeling of anxiety always, but it doesn't keep feeding it, right? So I love that you're aware of that and able to identify that that was something that you were kind of doing to yourself, that was just unnecessary. And you're like, I can ask this one question and all of that goes away. I think it's also really telling of the experiences that you and I have had in the past. Why would we be acting that way over a link for a live stream? Why would we have to have those conversations with ourselves, right? Because two other people could have had the same exchange and neither of them could have made any mental notes about it. It could have been just, like asking, somebody walks in your house, do you want a glass of water? Yep, here's the water. Like nobody thought anything about it. Somebody walked in, gave them a glass of water. And so when I think about like, what are the experiences that we had to have, to get to the point where you are feeling like you have to go that far above and beyond and inconvenience yourself to that level. For me, it comes back to a lot of trust too. It's trust in ourselves and it's having people in our lives that we can trust. So when you ask me where I would like the link and I tell you, then you're trusting that I am going to then follow through with that and go find the link there. I'm not going to message you again over in Facebook or Instagram and be like, where's the link? I can't find it anywhere. It tells me that we've had a lot of people in our lives that would treat us that way, that would be inconsiderate of the intentions that we put into things or the communication, or maybe we've been gaslit in the past where we've done what we feel like is necessary. Maybe you sent it in the email because that's what the protocol said to do. And then somebody comes back on you and says, well, I didn't ever get the link. And you did literally exactly what you were supposed to do. And that person just didn't hold up their end of the deal. And then in that kind of power dynamic comes some of that anxiety, right? Like, oh, could I have done more? Could I have done a better job? Should I have sent it elsewhere? How could I, better communicate with this person in the future? And then from there, it just goes and goes and goes instead of holding the boundary and saying protocol says email, that's where you'll find the link.
Yeah. Which thing do I respond to? Because there were so many just, you talked about like the people, of course we've been talking about people pleasing and embracing ourselves. And oh my God, I just lost the phrase that you used. That's okay. But I'm gonna, as Linda says, let it come in. The thought will present itself. When all of these things show up as stress, as anxiety, as overwhelm, like mitigating those circumstances, as somebody who's, I think you said mansplaining, or something similar to that. Maybe that's not the phrase. But
gaslighting.
Yes, gaslighting. I'm like, mansplaining, gaslighting. Yeah, something there.
That genre.
But it doesn't have to necessarily be a man. That's mansplaining. But gaslighting suits it better. Think about like all the things that we did. Yeah, Linda just quoted herself. Let it come in. I love that. I'm trying to regain my thought here. All the things that we had to go through in order to then protect ourselves, in order to still feel, I got my thought back, in control. You said for you, it comes down to trust. Mm-hmm. The other factor there is the autonomy. And that's not necessarily my autonomy. Like, yes, I do. That's something that I am a big proponent of. I like to have a choice. I present me with all the options, give me choices, but then give me the freedom to let me make the decision that's right for me. And I believe we all have that and should and own that. But the way that relates to the trust factor is when somebody doesn't do what they say that they're going to do, or doesn't look for it in the right place, or the place that they requested it, or what protocol says, or however they're not holding up their end of the bargain, I've found that I take on more need to control because I don't want it to fail. I don't want it to go wrong. And again, maybe we need to have another live to like unpack all of this, because it just keeps like adding to like all the juicy tidbits that we could dive into on this. But like, when I am making all the choices and trying so hard to stay in control, I'm not giving anybody else the opportunity to disprove it. I'm taking away somebody's autonomy. I'm taking away their power to choose. And I don't want to do that. And so recognizing that I don't have to always be in control, that I shouldn't be, that I can let go and let somebody else make that decision. And knowing and recognizing that I really do want that. I don't want to be the one that's making all the decisions all the time and just saying, hey, this is where it is. I expect you to do it. Like, and I don't even have to say I expect it, because if you're going to hold up what you say you're going to do, I shouldn't have to communicate that it's an expectation or a need.
Yeah. I was just thinking, you're reminding me of also what I like to call, and it's not necessarily my term, I heard this early on in parenting, natural consequences are my favorite. And it is quite the balm or cure to some people-pleasing tendencies if you can accept there are natural consequences to other people's actions, and you do not have to be a human buffer to those consequences. And it doesn't mean that it also means, that you are not necessarily contributing to the consequences or making them worse, right? So just to stick with the example of the, link being an email, because that's where protocol says it is. Well, then the natural consequence is that person doesn't make it to the meeting. And it's not your fault or your problem. The natural consequence is on them. They did not find it. They did not show up. And people have a really hard time accepting responsibility for things, but that's often because we are surrounded by people pleasers, or we had parents that wanted to buffer us from certain consequences, or it's just a culture of not taking our own personal responsibility. And so if you mess something up and you don't put the link in the email where it belongs, of course you can take responsibility for that. That is on your side of the fence. But when it comes to somebody else not doing something, we have to be okay with other people being unhappy. We can be okay with them having emotions about us, or opinions about us, or negative, perceptions of us, or even untrue thoughts. That is okay. They are allowed to do that. Now, if they are, attacking you with that or coming at you, then we're into a whole other conversation. But just in general, it's fine. People can think negative things about you. And, if it's negative things about you because you are standing in your own personal responsibility and you're not climbing over the fence to take responsibility for what's on their side of the fence, like, you're okay.
Yeah.
And with kids, it's the same thing in parenting. It's recognizing when I don't have to protect my children from natural consequences of their actions. And this has been highlighted for me in having them home and doing virtual school with them, because they still have a teacher. I'm not actually their teacher. I'm their learning support. And so when they want to take a shortcut that I know is not a great shortcut to take, I can say, I don't feel that is, fulfilling the requirements. How do you feel about it? And I let them tell me. And if they still want to push back, I can say, well, it sounds like something we might need to talk to the teacher about. Would you like to send her an email and explain your thoughts to her? Usually that works pretty quickly, where they're like, no, I'll just do the assignment. However, if they choose to not do an assignment, or they choose to turn in basically subpar work. They turn in something that I know isn't to the best of their ability or doesn't complete the requirements. I get to also let them have that experience. Like, school is a safe place for them to make mistakes. It's a safe place for them to see what happens when you don't do what you are asked to do, or you don't do, you don't fulfill requirements. And when I was a kid, I didn't really learn, much about failure and how to feel safe failing and how to feel safe making mistakes and how to repair mistakes that you have made. I just did everything. I tried to just do everything perfectly and get all straight A's and never cause any trouble. And so the times that something did go wrong were literally devastating to me. And so I want to have resilient kids that notice there are natural consequences of their actions and they get to take responsibility for them. And they don't have to take responsibility for more than. Yeah, all they need to take responsibility for is themselves and their actions and their behavior.
Yeah. And there's something too of you instilling in them that they don't have to take on any extra tension or stress of any like expectations that you may have projected on them previously. Like you're removing that. You're making the choice and the decision and the power be solely on them, and they get to own the decision that they make. Now, if they chose to not study for a test or not complete the project, and then the result was not what they would have wanted, well, then they have nobody to blame but themselves because they made that decision. I don't remember explicitly like failing per se and like immediately feeling, oh, well, I've let somebody down. I always felt like I was letting myself down, but I learned that somewhere of like, I wanted to always do my best and beyond my best because I didn't want to possibly. And again, whether or not my parents were saying this or if I projected that fear back onto them as if it was coming from them of, well, why didn't you do better? How come you didn't study harder? How come you didn't get that A? Why did you only get a B minus? Like whatever it is. Okay, maybe that last one happened. B minus. I was mad at myself, but also it got put out there. But like I know I was projecting it a lot back onto them because I didn't want to let myself down too. So that's a whole other part of embracing yourself and your decisions. Well, if I'm not going to put in the effort, I'm not going to necessarily get the results that I was looking for. And then I just have to own the fact that like, okay, I could have done more and I chose not to. And there's a reason why I chose not to, whatever that may be. Will we do better next time? Maybe, maybe not. But
yeah, and that is the beauty of choosing and having a choice. And I just had like exactly what we're talking about. I had this amazing conversation with my 8-year-old this past week. She was having like an upset stomach, and I just was getting this like mom intuitive hit that it was nerves, that it was emotion, because the way she was describing it and like she'd been eating really normally, she wasn't having any other symptoms. But I couldn't really get her to talk about anything with, nothing really was coming up for her. And so later I sat her down. This was unrelated. I wasn't even thinking about the stomach ache. And I said, you've been getting done with your school really quickly, and it doesn't seem like you're asking for very much help. Like, are you getting everything done okay? And I get the yes with a like eye flash to the side, kind of thing. I'm like, that was an interesting answer. I said, is there a chance that maybe some of it's not getting done? To not make it about everything, like some of it not getting done. And she was like, maybe, and I could just feel like her own shame and her own like fear of what's going to happen. And so we were able to have a conversation where I was just asking her, what have you been doing? What has been getting done? What hasn't been getting done? And how do you feel about it? I was able to bring it back to her.
Yeah.
And she was able to identify that. She said, I feel like a lot of people are counting on me to get school done and do school. And it was all her parents, both here and at her dad's house, and her teachers. And I said, well, we are not the ones going to school, though. Like, we don't do this for us. We want to be here to support you because we would like you to learn. However, that doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. And it also needs to be something you feel invested in if you're going to do it. Because otherwise, motivation runs out, and pressure from other people only gets you so far. So I said, do you feel good about the decisions that you have made about doing school or not, lack thereof? And she said she didn't feel good about it. Like, it was that simple to help her recognize that she was not feeling good about her own decision. And, just reading through the lessons and skipping the worksheets, she knew and felt that she should be doing more, and she actually wanted to be doing more. It's just then she could just do less school so that she could have more free time. So we were able to see, like, well, you're making this trade-off to get more free time and play more, and then you don't even feel good about it. So making this decision is actually not getting you what you want. And I said, why do you learn? Why do you want to learn? And she said, because if I do math, it'll make me a better artist. She's all about her art. And so I said, yes, all of these tools and skills will make you a better artist and will help you in your art, because you're exercising all these different parts of your brain, and it actually will help make you more creative and help you, communicate with people. And so I asked her if she wanted to write herself a reminder. And her first idea was she was going to write math plus social studies plus science plus, what did I miss? ELA equals art, which I thought was brilliant. And she ended up actually drawing an adult holding a child. And she wrote all over the adult science, math, social studies, ELA, all over. And then the child, she wrote art, my dreams, art, my dreams. And she had this adult holding this child. And then in the corner, she wrote, life lifts up your dreams. I was like, I'm going to need this on a poster. It was amazing. And to see her come around from feeling guilty and feeling ashamed and being afraid she was going to get in trouble. That was the big thing. She was so afraid she was going to get in trouble. And she was able to then get to the point of recognizing her own motivation, her own desire, her own identity, and make it about her, and make it about, this is something that's going to help me reach my ultimate goal, which is to be an artist. And I want to be a great artist, so I want to do a good job in school. And the next day, she did her school with so much fervor. She was so happy. She was telling me she was happy. I could tell that the weight had been lifted from her shoulders. And it was so cool to see her have a safe place to realize that she can get help instead of getting in trouble, which I think is another people-pleasing pattern, right? We will just, instead of getting ourselves into trouble, or like we were talking about, being inconvenient to somebody, or interrupting them, or putting a burden on them, right? We have all these fears about how we will put ourselves onto other people in a way. And instead seeing that we can flip that around. And we can, again, take that personal responsibility. And it was such a beautiful, wonderful, amazing exchange. And I told a friend about it. She's like, she will remember that for the rest of her life. And I hope she does. I hope she carries that feeling of safety and confidence with her, and that she feels comfortable in the future to come to me and say, you know, I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble for this and I want to talk about it. Like that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. She fully embodied like she went from bracing herself to embracing herself in like a matter of a conversation.
Yeah.
And
I love that the picture was literally an embrace also.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Like she went from like feeling pressured and overwhelmed and anxious, feeling it in her body and with an upset tummy, like feeling ashamed that she didn't get the work done and like that she was putting it off, and then the shame for not telling you about it. Like she went from the bracing herself for the impact to embracing herself and like how it was going to make her better and communicating what her needs were, and then working together with you to like figure out what that could look like going forward.
Yes, and that's exactly what we did too. I said, would you like me to check in with you after each lesson? You know, could you just let me know like when you finish math and I'll check in with you? I said, would that be helpful? And she said, yes. And, you know, and then we were able to do that. And it's such a small thing. It's just a simple thing. But I let her be in control of that and decide what would actually help her, you know, to feel like I was supporting her, but not like helicoptering to make sure she got it done. It was like, hey, you've expressed you have this goal. I'd like to help keep you accountable to what you want and support you. And that was really awesome too. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. So like what this does on so many levels is she's clearly now communicated the need. She feels supported in that need. She feels good about the decision that she's made on her own, like with your support, of course, but like she's made that decision for herself.
Yeah.
And found a way to still like embrace the fact that, all right, here are my goals. It is all about art for me. Like, this is what drives me. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. This is what all roads I want to lead to. And that may change as she grows and learns and evolves. But for now, that's what her goals are. And she found a way to like take what was holding her back and what didn't feel good to channel it into like doing more of the things that make her feel good. So, whew, if that's not just like a life lesson for work, relationships, personal, professional, like all the things, like an 8-year-old just taught us all how to be better at owning our yes and our no and like embracing ourselves. Like, yeah. Like, I just feel so warm and fuzzy inside. Oh my God. I haven't even like, I've waved to your daughter on calls before, but like we've never met in person yet. That'll happen. But like, I just want to give her a hug and embrace her too, because she is me. Like like that. She's what we should all strive to. Doesn't necessarily art doesn't necessarily be the goal, but like she owned the crap out of like both sides of the equation. I'm so proud of her for that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story with everyone. I think this is a great place to wrap up because we just
so good.
So many things. Certainly we could keep this going, but oh my God, I'm so proud of your daughter for like doing that. I'm proud of you for like recognizing like what she needed in that moment and like having those tough conversations to support her. Thank you for all the comments that everybody was dropping in there today. If you're watching the replay, please put #replay so that I know. If you resonated with any or all of this, any parts in between, something that maybe we didn't touch on, we'd love to hear from you as well, because certainly embracing yourself, bracing yourself for impact, both sides of the coin, If you're in your operation separation. I'm just going to touch on all the keywords that we dropped here for a second. We talked about gaslighting and people pleasing and showing up for ourselves and being in a safe space to do that. Whew, makes me just so out of breath thinking of all the things. But yeah, this has been an amazing conversation with Steena Marie. Thank you so much for being here. This will live on LinkedIn for eternity, which I'm so excited about. I will also be dropping replays on YouTube if you'd like to check it out there. Tune in next week for another Operation Separation. I've got another amazing guest. Before I let you go, Steena, just quickly tell everybody, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is steenamarie.com or over on Instagram, THE Steena Marie.
I'll drop those links into the notes afterwards so that you can connect with Steena and find her there if you want to continue the conversation. Again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks so much, Shel.